Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to us from India and Europe, and good morning to our attendees from the US. My name is Shivam Srivastava, and I'm a researcher in the area of marketing and innovation at the Center for Business Innovation at Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this insightful panel discussion organized in a webinar format. Today, we delve into one of the most widely debated topic, that is using AI and ML to address challenges in digital platforms. And we'll be covering insights from India and the worldwide. As we know that artificial intelligence is reshaping the digital ecosystem, influencing how we search for information, intersect with advertisements, conduct market research, and make purchasing decisions. As AI and machine learning continues to evolve, they present both unprecedented opportunities as well as complex challenges for business, consumers, and society at large. This session brings together leading experts to provide valuable insights into the far reaching impact of AI, shedding light on how businesses can harness its potential while navigating ethical and operational challenges. Our esteemed panelists, each distinguished speaker in the field, will offer valuable insights into the evolving intersection of AI, management, technology, society, and culture. So, before we dive into the discussion, I would like to invite Mr. Venkatesh to introduce the aims and ongoing initiatives of CSITM. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Shivam. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Venkatesh Balakrishnan. I manage the Center for Software and Information Technology Management of IIM Bangalore. On behalf of IIM Bangalore and CSITM, it's my pleasure to extend a warm welcome to all the distinguished speakers of today and all the participants. Professor Shankadeep Banerjee is the chairperson for this center. Many of the participants are participants who have been regular to many of our events. And for the benefit of those who are joining this for the first time, I would give a 1-minute introduction. CSITM is one of the world's centers of excellence in IIM Bangalore. This has been in existence for about 25 years. And as we all know, Bangalore is the IT hub of India. And because of the locational advantage, we have a good network of professionals from the IT industry. And we also have developed over time a huge network of academics, lawmakers, and also industry professionals from across the globe. And the goals of CSITM are aligned to promoting knowledge exchange, training, and promoting research also. And we conduct various events, some of them in the format of webinars such as this, and some of them are large seminars and summits. And even recently, we have had a similar webinar on artificial intelligence, and I would encourage all the participants to follow our announcements and our communication to participate in similar events. And with that said, I welcome you all once again and hand it to Shivam to take today's event forward.
Thank you so much, sir. It is now my pleasure and privilege to introduce our esteemed panelists who have joined us for this exciting session. Our first speaker is Dr. Sarmishtha Sikdar. Dr. Sarmishtha Sikdar's research focuses on the development and application of statistical models and machine learning methods to address empirical challenges in marketing. Her work explores various applications, including competitive price dynamics on e commerce platforms like Amazon and Walmart, and the development of predictive models for consumer behavior and pricing strategies. She holds a master's degree in quantitative economics from the Indian Statistical Institute, Calcutta, and PhD in marketing from the Cornell University. She also earned her bachelor's degree in economics with honors from Calcutta University. Before joining academia, Dr. Sikdar worked with leading organizations such as General Electric, Citibank, and Infosys. focusing on pricing models, predictive analytics, and customer behavior insights. She's also a co-inventor of a patented customer analytics solution designed for enterprises. Our second panelist is Dr. E. Liu. Dr. Liu is an assistant professor of the marketing at the Wisconsin School of Business, University of Wisconsin-Madison. His research focuses on the development of theoretical model to examine the impact of technology, particularly artificial intelligence and digital platforms on consumer behavior and firm strategies. Dr. Liu's recent work on content moderation in social media platforms has gained recognition in leading academic journals such as Marketing Science and Management Science. His research has also been featured in prominent media outlets like Knowledge at Wharton and has been cited by industry professionals. In addition to his research, Dr. Liu has designed and taught courses on marketing analytics and digital strategy. He holds a PhD in marketing from the Wharton School of Business, University of Pennsylvania. Our third panelist is Dr. Dante Donati. He is an assistant professor of marketing at the Columbia Business School, University of Columbia, specializing in the application of theoretical and empirical models to analyze firm and consumer behaviors on online platforms. His research explores the impact of digital marketing on brand sentiment, behavioral change, and social outlook, providing evidence based insights to inform business strategies and policy decisions. Beyond academia, Dr. Donati is the co founder of the Virtual Lab, which is an open source platform that develops tools for online survey recruitment and evaluates the behavioral changes and the behavioral effects of ad campaign, apps, and website. He holds PhD in economics from Pompeu Fabra University and a master's degree in economics from Bocconi University. He is also a research fellow at CESFO and has collaborated with the World Bank on policy-oriented research. Our fourth panelist is Dr. Klaus Miller. He is an assistant professor of marketing at the HEC Paris and a chairholder at the High Paris Center on Data Analytics and Artificial Intelligence for Science, Business, and Society. His research lies at the intersection of empirical quantitative marketing, management economics, and information system, with a particular focus on advertising and privacy issues in the digital economy. Dr. Miller has been a frequent visiting scholar at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania and the Graduate School of Business at Stanford University, both during and after his PhD. His research is published and on under review at the leading academic journals, including the American Economic Review, Management Science, Journal of Marketing Research, and International Journal of Research in Marketing, as well as management-oriented publications. So we are honored to have such a esteemed panel with us today. And once again, I warmly welcome all of you to this forum, and we'll now outline the structure of today's discussion. Each panelist will present their perspective for about 12 minutes, followed by an engaging discussion. The panel have agreed to take questions from the audience at the end, so feel free to type in your question as and when they occur to you. The sequence of presentation will be as follows: Dr. Sikdar, Dr. Liu, Dr. Donati, and Dr. Miller. So without any further ado, it is my great pleasure to invite Dr. Sanmishra Sikdar to share her invaluable insights and expertise with us. Over to you, Dr. Sikdar.
Thank you very much, Shivam. Thanks, everyone. So hello, everyone who's just joined in, and thanks very much to the IM Bangalore and CSITM group for inviting us. Having lived in Bangalore, Bangalore was my home for several years during my industry years. So it's a personal honor for me to be able to talk, give this talk. So let me share my screen and just let me know if you can see it. So give me a second. Is my screen visible, Shiva?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
All right, perfect. So let me
Mm,
just.
yeah.
So this is actually one of my recent projects, and just as Shiva mentioned, that my work uses statistical machine learning methods, and I'm an empirical researcher. So one end of the spectrum, I look at pricing and on e-commerce platforms, and on the other, I look into customer journey management. So this is from the first end of the spectrum, which is pricing and platforms. And this is a joint collaboration with my colleague Ishita Chakravarti, who's an assistant professor at Wisconsin School of Medicine, and my colleague in the industry, he is Nika Dogonadze. He works for a startup called TakeUp.ai. So let me first begin with the motivation of this research. So this is a very famous painting, and no prizes for guessing because this is the artist, because this is Pablo Picasso, the guy who started the Cubist movement, and was sold in the recent Sotheby's auction for a whopping $139.4 million. Now, if you're wondering why would a buyer pay for Picasso at that higher price, the idea is that when you look at legendary artists and established artists like Picasso, the painting is not bought for personal consumption. It's essentially an investment. So it's the artist's reputation which triggers the resale value of the artwork, and therefore drives the price in an auctioning sort of a price instrument, right? However, there are also artists who make a complete career out of art, but they are not as well known as Picasso. So we are calling them the novice artists. And I'm sure many of you during your, decking up your home or office would have made purchases from novice artists. And when you're buying them, you're not really buying them for an investment. You know that after a period of time, it has a shelf life and you'll probably throw it away. So it's essentially for personal consumption. Right. So such kind of art is not priced in an auctioning mechanism. Rather, it is the onus of the artists themselves to set a price. And if you know of any artist friend or colleague or family member, you know that one of the critical things that they face is how do you really determine the price? Right. Now, there are some online advisory tools which use very rudimentary cost-based methods. And when I say cost-based method, it's more like, okay, you've been working for X number of years as an artist. So what's the labor rate you want to charge? And that could be used as a multiplier. Or maybe what is the dimensions of your artwork? Maybe use a cost per square inch and use that as a multiplier. So our motivation actually stems from this, that can we do better than this? That is, can we help these artists set prices which are more representative of market prices? So our empirical context is the art that is sold on Etsy. And this is a typical listing example on Etsy. So you can see that an artist, when they list, they upload a host of images for a particular painting. And then you can also extract several things like, how did they describe the painting? What is the painting title? And then there are other personalizations. For instance, what is the dimension? Is it customizable or not? Is it available on a stretch canvas or is it framed, etc. Right? And also from an artist perspective, you can get what's the review that the artist has received, what's their reputation that they've built on that platform. So you can get artist-specific characteristics as well. So two things, you have artwork characteristics, artist characteristics, and also you have data that we can extract which belong to three different modalities. So one is the structured data, which would be your typical numerical columns. And then you also have unstructured data in terms of images as well as text. So our research goal is that can we build a model that we can determine where we can determine a relationship between the price that a customer pays for a painting and the artwork and artist characteristics that you see on these listings, right? And if we can do that, can we then identify what are the factors that are more important and more relevant in setting the price? So is it the art characteristics or the artist's characteristics? And also among the various modalities of data, structured versus unstructured, which is more important, right? And all in all, our managerial goal is that can our model help these novice artists set up prices which are more accurate than what is suggested by online advisory sites? So our data uses, we have scraped data from Etsy, and we have 3 different genres, and we have sampled 21 experienced artist shop. By experience, we mean that they have positive sales made on Etsy. So that gives us a total of 4,000 plus sold paintings. And these are the painting characteristics, as you can see on the screen. So before we delve into a more complicated model, what we did was a proof of concept with a linear regression, almost like a hedonistic regression. And we use all of the structured data inputs. And as you can see that, when you think about textual data, you cannot directly include them. So we did a topic modeling and extracted topic densities from the painting titles and descriptions. So some of the interesting topic densities were like, hey, did the is the painting for a specific decor purpose? So what did the artist specifically say that, this is for, living room decor versus, office decor. And then there were on painting description, there were topics that came out as, is the artist providing a certificate of authenticity, or is there a shipping policy that has been prescribed, like maybe free shipping or free returns within 30 days? So these were interesting topics that came out of the topic modeling. And for the images, obviously we could not directly include images in the linear model. So what we did was we looked at the count of images per listing as a proxy for that. So what was encouraging from the linear model is that not only did we find that the structured data inputs were important and significant, we also found that several of the topic densities and the number of images and also the interaction of these were significant variables. So that gave us the motivation and, of course, the groundwork to build a multimodal fusion deep learning architecture. So there are 3 different components in our architecture, so depending on 3 modalities. So we have the structured data, we have the textual data, and we have the images. So what we did with the structured data is first we pre-processed using one-hot encoding. We converted them into binary categorical variables, which gave us a sparse vector. And then we ran it through a multi-layer perceptron to convert this into a dense embedding. And then for the textual data, we used OpenAI's text embedding, sentence embedding model, which is publicly available. And we used that to convert the textual data into their latent representation to sentence embedding. And then for the visual data, that is images, we used residual neural network. So that helped us convert that into the latent representation. And then finally, when we had 3 different vectors, what we did is we convert that into a unified representation, which combines all 3 modalities, ran it through the neural network regression, and then that gives us the estimated price. Now, one of the things about a machine learning architecture, and as you can see, as Shivam started off with this is an application of AI, where the AI, we have looked at OpenAI's method to do the embedding. So it's like a processing step that we have used in. But in general, if any machine learning model is very good in prediction, but there is always a difficulty when you think about, well, how do you interpret the variables? And one of our goals is to actually interpret it. That is, how do you find, among the structured data inputs, what's more important, or, among structured versus unstructured, what's more important. So one way we could tackle the problem is using ablation analysis. So what we did here is we, of course, have the full model, which has all 3 modalities. And then we also have bimodal models, where you remove one of the modalities and train on the remaining 2. And then you also have the singular modalities, where you just use a single modality and then train. And what we did was, as you can see, we have reported here the mean squared error rate on the validation data set and also the R squared on the sample on which we trained it, the training data. So we have this loss performance. What is the performance loss over the full model? So if you remove the structured data, then we find that among the three bimodal models, this model performs the worst, which means that text and visual alone does not do a very good job. And then if you look at the singularities, the singular models, right? Here, if you just train it on visual data, then the performance loss is the worst. So that gives us a gradation that structured data is the most important, followed by text, followed by visual. And then what we did was we delved further into the structured inputs and to see, hey, how are these now important? And so, and how do they stack up? So here we looked at the Shapley value plots, and what we identified are a host of artwork characteristics, which are more important than the artist characteristics. So for instance, whether the surface material is canvas, whether the media is oil or acrylic, whether it's handmade or print, whether it's framed or not. So these are variables which are more important than, let's say, the number of reviews or admirers that the artist may have had. Or even for the matter, when you think about the online advisory tools which uses dimensions, the dimensions are important, true, but they are of lesser importance than other characteristics of the painting. Right? Now, this by no means is a complete exercise. So this is actually a work in progress project. So what we are continuing to do here is one of the limitations of our neural network architecture is that we are looking at modalities which do not interact with one another. So if there is a cross-modal interaction between, let's say, visual and image or image and text, we are not, or sorry, image and some structured data, we are not considering that. So one way to work around that is to use a clip model, which we are working on currently, which can actually do extract joint embeddings of image and text. So that gives the cross-modal interactions of visuals and text. And we intend to retrain our neural network model with the clip embeddings and then use DeepShap for interpreting the variable importances. And the other limitation currently with this data is that we have a static data set. So what we intend to do is collect the data dynamically. So that is, right from the time when an artist would have, listed the painting up until the time it got sold, what were the variations in the price, and if at all there were variations. So that would help us capture the dynamism of artwork pricing. So having said that, so I'm going to summarize. So across 4 different streams of literature, to the best of our knowledge, our work is the first to examine artwork pricing in the Novus Art segment. And so far in our story, we find that structured data inputs are most important, followed by text and visual. And we have uncovered that the artwork characteristics are more important than artist characteristics, as well as artwork dimensions. So which means we are bringing in more information than online advisory tools bring in. And managerial goals are very clear. So if we can come up with our model and we can help emerging artists with no sales experience to get them suggest prices which are more representative of market prices. And for platforms like Etsy, right now their ranking algorithm is in a way biased in favor of sellers who already have experience in selling. But let's say you're an emerging artist with no sales history with Etsy. If Etsy were to use price fairness as a measure of ranking, then newbie artists will also have a shot at being ranked upwards. And for customers, that there's a trickle-down effect. If you are giving a better ranking of relevant items, that reduces their search costs. So there are several implications here. So stay tuned with this because it is still a work in progress. If you want to read our paper in its current form, this is a QR code for this. We also have an online app that we have created for artists, and you can so the app looks somewhat like this. You can drop an image, fill in the title, description, and all the key features that our model gives you. And then when you hit on the enter, it will give you an estimated price. So that's how an emerging artist can take advantage of our tool. So having said that, I think that's about it. I'm gonna hand it over to the next presenter.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Sikdar, for your insightful presentation on artwork pricing in the novice art market. Your research using multimodal deep learning and ITSI data shed light on how emerging artists can price their work effectively. And by analyzing painting characteristics such as artist reputation and platform dynamics, your studies offer insights for artists, platforms like Etsy, and the consumer as well. So we appreciate your time and expertise in exploring this important topic. So now I would like to invite Dr. Liu to share his thoughts. Over to you, Dr.
Oh, I think I was muted just now. So now you can hear me, right? Yeah. Thank you, Shivam. Thank you for the organization, and thank for the invitation from IIM Bangalore. And it was also great to see my colleague's name on Shimasa's presentation as Ishita. Yeah. So what I'm going to share with you today is a recent publication in Marketing Science by myself and Jesse Liu from Johns Hopkins University. We are going to talk about something related to influencer marketing and matching technology in this project. So basically, the title is Asymmetric Impact of Matching Technology on Influencer Marketing Implications for Platform Revenue. As you know, in recent years, influencer marketing has been growing a lot. Okay, so basically, I'm sure most of you have experienced, the experience with watching videos or just this kind of advertising by these influencers. So basically, they just endorse a product in their, let's say, the post or in their videos. And this has become a really big source of revenue for social media platforms. And I just show some data to you. In the US, 34% of Instagram users, 25% of Facebook users, and 29% of Twitter users claim that they have bought something because an influencer recommended it. And basically, this because this the big impact of influencer on consumers. Actually, this social media platform can collect the money from the influencer marketing business. So, for example, YouTube, they have something called Brand Connect. They charge a 10% commission on top of influencer marketing fee. And online marketing has become the largest revenue source for Kuaishou, which is a competitor of the Chinese version of TikTok. Okay, so basically you can see they have become influencer marketing has become a really big source of revenue for social media platforms. However, there's a challenge in the influencer marketing that experienced by a lot of practitioners. So according to marketers, they say that one of the most frustrating challenges is choosing the right influencers with whom to work with. So the reason is not so for now there's just a lot of influencers on Instagram, on social media platforms. For example, only on Instagram there's already more than 500,000. So it's really hard for a brand, for a marketer to find the best influencer to work with, given that there's a huge number of influencers on Instagram, and also different influencers may have different target audience who may or may not coincide with the brand's target customers. So one of the solutions proposed for solving this problem, matching brands and influencers, is to have something we call brand influencer matching AI or matching technology. So, for example, Douyin, which is the Chinese version of TikTok, they just launched matching service for here they call it KOLs. That means like influencers, and the businesses, the brands. And YouTube also has something called Brand Connect that helps these marketers or brands find their correct influencers. So basically how this works is like the brands will tell the system who their target customers are, and then the system will find the best influencers for you. The question we are going to ask in this project is like, does such brand influencer matching AI or matching technologies really help platforms? So at the first glance, it seems like the answer is very obvious. It should be a yes, because AI does lift the matching efficiency and thus the performance of influencer marketing. So the influencers can charge higher prices, and also more influencers or marketers can join. So you will see, of course, the platform will take a commission out of all this business, so that will be a good thing for the platform. However, what we are going to point out in this project is there's another possibility that the things can go the other way around. That is, because AI can also change the competitive landscape of influencers, and thus the overall effect can be ambiguous. So this is just a very high level overall of the results. Now I'm going to go into details of the model and speak more about the mechanism behind this result. So in this paper, we actually build a model of influencer marketing by adopting this kind of what we call a salad circle, and to capture consumers' heterogeneous interest in a representative product category. So we assume that the consumers will be located on this on this circle, and the 0 is where the brand is located at. And the influencers, we assume that there's the broadness of follower interest. So some influencers are more broad, some influencers more narrow, which try to capture, there are different types of influencers. Some are general influencers, some are niche influencers. And here the bolded arc tries to, represent the broadness of each influencer's follower. And we also assume the density of the followers is a parameter rho, which means like how many followers, how many target audience are interacting with a specific influencer. And for the brands, we assume that their target customer is located at the 0, and the fixed cost of this influencer marketing campaign is distributed as uniformly between 0 and 0.5, and they can obtain revenue from the influencer N, that's, for example, this influencer with followers centered around X. And this is their revenue function for this influencer marketing. And the platform, so first of all, they take a commission out of such influencer marketing campaigns, and it also can offer some like an AI-based, technology-based service that can recommend to each marketer a set of influencers with followers centered around X hat. So here we will see that this X hat equal to 0 plus half of kappa, and this kappa tries to measure the AI bias, which means like this 0 is the target audience, but for some reason, because the AI may not be as perfect as you think, so they may only can target you to someone has a bias a half of kappa that is centered around this X hat. So the AI accuracy is we just define it as 1 minus kappa. And here is just a screenshot of how influencer marketing really works, and this is from a Chinese influencer marketing social media platform. So you'll see that they will post their prices, and this is the number of followers, and also this is their influencer category. So you can see whether it's really a broad category or more like a niche category. So this is the timing of the game. So first of all, platforms AI with some accuracy. Level alpha will recommend a set of influencers, and each influencer will propose a take it or leave it offer price PN, and that's try to capture the reality, like so they just post the prices here, and then each brand will choose whether to participate in such influencer marketing and whether to buy endorsement from one of these influencers, and finally, platform and influencer, they will share the price of such influencer marketing campaigns. And this is the platform's revenue function. Now let's come to the result. We find that actually the platform's revenue may not always increase with the AI prediction accuracy lambda. In particular, we will find that sometimes this revenue pi can decrease with lambda when the follower density rho is small. Why is that the case? Now we try to unpack the mechanism a little bit. So if you think about it, if you have a better AI accuracy in terms of matching influencers with brands, of course there will be some positive impact here. So first of all, you will think that the matching the matching will be more efficient, so that there's something we call matching enhancement effect. True. And also there's some market expansion effect. That means like when you increase the accuracy, of course, more marketers and influencers can come to the business, to the market, so that the platform can charge more from the commission. However, we want to mention that there's also a negative effect, possible negative effect. That is what we call a price competition effect, which means like when your technology becomes better, it actually will attract more influencers to the market, and basically this will create some competition, give some more pricing pressure to existing influencers in the marketplace. And so here we want to just make a distinguish between two different types of influencers. One is more general, another one is more niche. And we want to mention that AI improvement is much more helpful for niche influencers. Just imagine, if you're just someone who does Chinese calligraphy. Maybe there's some type of brand that you can work with, but without AI, you just cannot get anything. However, if it's a general influencer that you have a really large and you can endorse any kind of products, then AI improvement is helpful for you, but less helpful. And that is how this AI will change the competitive landscape. Just give you an illustration. Suppose the AI has improved from Lambda 1 to Lambda 2, and this is the influencer marketing value before, that is when it's Lambda 1, and this is the pricing when this the AI accuracy is Lambda 1. Now, because it changes, okay, and this is the participating influencers. Now, because the technology becomes better, so the influencer marketing value will increase for everyone. But as we said, it will increase more for niche influencers in our model with a smaller n, and increase less for the general influencers with a large n. So you can see the influencer marketing value after the AI improvement is represented by this dashed line. Because then this will change the competitive landscape, which means like the pricing will be changed. So you will see more influencers will flood into the market, and most of them are niche influencers, and which gives a pricing pressure for these general influencers, which means like they have to lower their price. So you can see the price of the general influencers will be lowered after the improvement of AI. And this because remember, the platform will take a commission out of the price, right? So some influencers decrease their price may not be a really good thing for the platform. Given the interest of time, I will just try to quickly summarize what we have in this paper. So the main takeaway is like improving a brand influencer matching AI may not always in the platform's best interest. Because there are 3 different effects of AI improvement, and one of them is actually negative. That is the price competition effect. And the reason why the total price effect can be negative is because there's an asymmetric impact of AI on these different types of influencers. And I will stop here, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Liu, for your insightful presentation on the impact of AI-driven brand influencer matching on platform revenue. Your research highlights the complex trade-off that platforms faces when improving AI accuracy, balancing market expansion, matching efficiency, and price competition. And also like how AI affects both general and niche influencer differently. Your work offers valuable insights for marketers, platforms, and the policymakers navigating the evolving landscape of influencer marketing. Now, I would like to request Dr. Dante Donati to share his thoughts. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much for inviting me here. It's a great pleasure to present this work in this webinar, which is actually about, this work is about India. Basically what I'm gonna talk about is an experiment that we did 3 years ago with Meta in India on the impact of advertising to affect malaria outcome in the country. And I'm going to talk not only about the effectiveness part, but also about the fairness of this campaign. So just as a start, to motivate this problem and this paper, so we are observing that governments and organizations around the world are increasingly using social media to promote campaigns, to spread campaigns for social good outcomes, public health objectives. So, for example, you can think of promoting vaccination or promoting better health behavior and so on. Okay, so a lot of these campaigns happen to be in developing countries, and there is a lot of evidence, growing evidence, that they are overall effective at achieving their goal. But what we try to understand is, what about their fairness? Do they actually improve the lives, the well-being of those individuals who are more or most at risk in some case, right? Or so those individuals who would need these campaigns the most. Even when these individuals are connected, okay, even if they are on social media, for example, do this campaign work, okay? And we point one issue, right? We point out one issue, which is both a threat and an opportunity that is driven by AI approach of social media platforms, which is in our case is basically the ad delivery algorithms that can both help us or go against us in achieving this goal. So we know that these algorithms generally what they do, they are prioritize engagement in platforms, and what happens is that these campaigns, the individuals that these campaigns trying to reach, they are often not those who engage the most on these platforms. Okay, and so it could be that these platforms skew the reach, and they're not reaching the individuals most in need. So in this paper, we try to provide empirical evidence for this problem, and then we also propose some solutions on how we can actually use algorithms in the most efficient way. So we look at India, and we conduct 2 large field experiments that aim at evaluating this malaria prevention campaign on 2 main outcomes. The first outcome is self-reported preventative behaviors or response behaviors. The second one is actually malaria incidents, which is both self-reported and recorded through administrative data. And we just, as I said, we don't only look at the overall effectiveness, but we also want to try to understand heterogeneous treatment effects across subpopulations in India. And we find out that the populations to look at, we do a lot of extensive research, so I don't have time to talk about here, but we basically find out that 2 main subgroups are of interest here. Individuals that live in non-solid dwellings. You can think of these people living in more rural areas as well, and those living in solid dwellings. And we find that we want to try to understand what are the heterogeneous effects of these type of campaigns on these 2 groups of individuals. So this heterogeneous analysis allows us to understand whether content is effective on these 2 groups, or whether the campaign might not have reached those who are most in need. And in particular, we know that those most in need are those individuals living in more rural areas, and so in non-solid houses. So the campaign was basically driven by the fact that was motivated by the fact that malaria is still widespread in India. In 2020, there were more than 4 million estimated cases, a little bit less than 200,000 officially recorded. And one of the most effective way to prevent malaria is actually using mosquito bed nets. And we have seen that about 2/3 of households have them, yet only 65% of those who have them use them regularly. And so that's a problem, because a lot of people are not protected. So what happened is in 2021, Meta, and together with some local implementing partners and the World Bank, they started this mass communication campaign to promote malaria awareness in the country, and incentivize individuals to act, for example, to sleep under the bed nets every night. the campaign objective on Meta was to to use engagement. So basically, the algorithm was set to by the advertiser was set to show ads at those individuals who are more likely to engage with these ads. And we find out that this could actually be a problem in this context. The campaign was massive. It was around 22 states, about $200,000 spent, and it reached about 43% of Facebook users in the country. It was live for about 6 months across 2020 and 2021. So how did we evaluate the impact of this campaign? We partnered with the implementing partner and with Meta, and we asked them to hold out 3 states where we could do, which we call study states, which we asked individuals to randomize on. So basically what we did is cluster randomization at the district level. Some districts were treated by these campaigns, other, which were the control districts, were not treated. So the campaign was not live in those control areas. And what we did was independently, we recruited survey samples to ask individuals to self-report their Bennett usage, as well as to self-report their malaria incidents. Importantly, what we did in this survey methodology, we decided to stratify the sample so that we could have enough individuals in each of the 2 subpopulations of interest. And remember, these 2 subpopulations are those who live in non-solid dwellers and those who live in solid dwellers. Okay, so we know that those who live in non-solid dwellers are much more exposed to malaria incidents, but they are also less represented on Facebook. They're less likely to be active on Facebook, and they're less likely to be on Facebook. So what we did was a heavy stratification so that we could have both type of individuals in our sample. Eventually, we had a balanced sample, so we could do heterogeneous treatment effects and see whether the impact of the campaign worked on non-solid dwellers as well as in solid dwellers. So what do we find? Very, very shortly, we find that self-reported Bennett usage overall increased, but the highest effect was among those individuals that lived in better in solid dwellings. Okay, so those made of cement or bricks. So there is an effect, but it's driven by those individuals that you can think of they're wealthier, right, and also healthier, less exposed to risk. We also find a decrease in incidence, self-reported incidence of malaria, and this is mostly driven by those individuals who have a Bennett, as long as they live in solid dwellings. So again, in this case, we find that individuals that are ex ante less at risk of malaria, they self-reported to have less malaria. We don't find any effect on individuals that are more at risk. So individuals that live in solid dwellings, they don't report to use more Bennetts, or they don't report to have less malaria case in their household. This is actually also holds overall. So we also look at administrative health facility data. In this case, we split across urban and rural incidents. And we find out that only urban incidents actually decreased and not rural incidents. Again, this is the idea that, urban areas is where most solid dwellers are. And in fact, we find a decrease there. It's actually a quite huge decrease compared to the baseline rate. But again, we don't find any effect of this campaign in rural areas. So we try to understand why. Okay, so we find strong effects among those who are less at risk and no effect among those who are actually at risk. So there can be a persuasion story, which means that the actual material, the ad content is not effective on those living in non-solid dwellings, or there might be a lack of targeting. So we do another study. In this case, we randomize at the individual level, and we make sure that every individual in both type of dwellings they will receive content. So we basically keep content reach constant and measure whether being exposed to content matters. And in this case, we actually find that there is no heterogeneous treatment effect. So conditional on receiving the ad campaign, you actually are more likely to sleep under Bennett's, even if you live in a non-solid dwelling. Okay, so even if you are at risk of malaria, given that I give you the content, it reminds you. So the content is effective. So what is the result? The result that we draw is that the campaign did not sufficiently reach individuals who are most in need. Okay, so the campaign itself, right, the overall campaign that Meta spread out was not reaching those in non-solid dwellings enough to basically nudge them to use, for example, bed nets in our case. Sorry. So what is the conclusion and what do we propose in this case? So we see that overall these social media campaigns are effective, but we also find that there is a strong heterogeneous treatment effects across subpopulations, right? And so in our case, what we find is that the ad delivery algorithms, which are also AI driven, can actually limit effectiveness on certain subpopulations. So what do we, how can we solve, how can we go beyond this problem? So we can look at it, we propose a data-driven micro-targeting approach, which is trying to maximize impact on specific subpopulations of interest. And in our case, so we developed a tool, it's called Virtual Lab, that allows you to basically conduct surveys online directly from social media audiences. And what you can do in this context is try to understand what is the audience that is most at risk, right? So conduct surveys and try to understand what are the characteristics, the predictors of risk, identifying on these communities, right? And this is a small subsample. What you can do is to try to feed this data to AI-driven lookalike audience tools that a lot of media platforms, social media platforms provide, to try to target individuals who are very similar to your at-risk population. And in fact, what we did is we tried this in our context, and we were actually successful at improving in our context, for example, the share of respondents that were more at risk. So the share of respondents living in non-permanent dwellings using a lookalike audience tool for social good objectives. So basically what we tried in this graph, what you see is that if you try, for example, to engage individuals using a naive, non-optimized way, you tend to have less people at risk. While if you actually start and you turn on the lookalike audience tool, you see that the orange lines shifted to the right, meaning that we were able to engage more with individuals more at risk. And in our case, these were the non-permanent, non-solid dwellers. So this is an approach that can help, for example, in our case, social media marketers that promote public health objectives to target subpopulations of interest. In our case, those most at risk of malaria. So I don't have time to talk more about the technology. This is actually in a you can look at this website, virtuallab.digital, and also there's another working paper on this. But thanks for the chance to talk about this. Very exciting.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Zanati, for your compelling presentation on the role of social media campaign in malaria prevention. Especially the experiments that you conducted is based out of India highlights the challenges and opportunities of using ad delivery algorithms for public health outreach. So by examining how AI-driven targeting can improve campaign reach among vulnerable populations, your work offers a critical insights into the intersection of technology, public policy, and social impact. So we appreciate your time and expertise. So now I would like to invite Dr. Klaus Miller to share his thoughts. Over to you, Dr. Klaus.
Thank you very much, Ivan, for the nice introduction and also for the invitation. Thanks also to my prior speakers. It was really nice to hear about your work. I'm presenting a new project, which is work in progress together with Shunyao Yan from Santa Clara University in the United States. And ideally, you should see my screen now. Is that the case? All right, perfect. So this is on the economic trade-off of polarizing news content. So as you may know, polarization has been increasing worldwide. If you look at the political situation across the globe in the United States, but also in other parts of the globe. And news publishers have kind of commodified polarizing political news content, at least some publishers, but other publishers they take a different route and they actually try to avoid polarizing news content. For example, last year, the New York Times was criticized at that time still by the Biden White House of their balanced coverage. And the executive editor actually of the New York Times said that they don't want to take sides. So we want to cover the full range of issues. So there seems to be kind of two different stances of different media in the media landscape, of either trying to increasingly polarize news versus other news outlets try to take a more balanced approach. And what we are thinking about in this project, or what we were wondering about, is actually do news publishers benefit from polarization in terms of short-term engagement, so clicks, but also long-term subscriptions to the platform? And if so, why is this the case, or why is this not the case? So this is what we are trying to study here. This is relevant, of course, for publishers because they want to measure and predict content that generates subscriptions. So if you know the industry a little bit, ad revenues are typically much more volatile than subscription revenues. So a lot of the publishers, they want to move away from ad revenues towards subscription revenues. So is polarizing content a way to increase revenues in the long term? So this is an important question for publishers, but it also is interesting regarding consumer behavior. So there's conflicting evidence in the literature whether consumers actually demand polarizing content and whether they are looking more for confirmation versus a more balanced news diet. And of course, those topics are important for the societal discussions that we have regarding echo chambers, for example, and polarization in general. So this is what we're trying to do in the paper. I'm just going to give you an overview of our empirical setting, given the time constraints. So we bring together some novel data sources. So we have access to news consumption clickstream data from a European news publisher, around 40 weeks, which is kind of the supply and demand of a important news publisher, which is a newspaper of record. So you can think of the New York Times or the Washington Post, the Guardian, and we use parliamentary speech data from that country. So we have access to all the parliamentary speeches that are digitally available. And we use this data to train a BERT-based model to identify political polarization in this multi-party governmental system. So this is a little bit different than what we're used to in the prior literature, which mainly focused on the US, where we looked at two-party systems. So this is really a multi-party system, and we develop a novel measure of content polarization for the European context and apply it then to this European news publisher at the article level. In a third step, we want to estimate the impact of polarizing political news on consumer engagement in the short term. So how does it affect click behavior, but also long-term commitment in terms of subscription behavior? And there we have this challenge that, of course, consumers are self-selecting into consuming polarizing articles. So we have to isolate this effect of polarizing content from self-selection. And we do so by exploiting or using an instrumental variable approach, and we exploit the interaction of the news supply of the publisher and federal election, which took place during our observation period, while controlling for other factors such as individual news interest, news sentiment, and how often you, for example, see a subscription prompt. And then in a fourth step, what we do is we are interested, of course, also in the mechanism of the effect of polarizing news content on engagement and subscription. And there, what we do so far is we look at prior political beliefs, exploiting voting shares of the consumers, as well as consumers' baseline news consumption to figure out how the effect varies across different population of consumers on our news platform. In terms of the identification strategies, so a little bit on the technicalities. So we begin with a baseline estimation where we want to study the effect where we regress engagement or subscriptions on polarizing articles. So the share of polarizing articles that a consumer clicked on in a specific week. We control for consumer and week fixed effects and those other factors that I mentioned before, news categories, news sentiment, and subscription prompts. Of course, there's selection. So there's an IV estimation where we, in the first stage, explain polarizing articles by 2 instrumental variables. So we use the federal election in our focal country. Some of the traffic also comes from other countries. So this is why we can use the interaction of the country and the election. And we also exploit the triple interaction of the country and the election and news supply as a second instrument, which kind of works as an exogenous shock to study or to identify the causal effect. And of course, we have to think about instrument validity in this case. So we consider instrument relevance and the exclusion restrictions. So for relevance, what is necessary is a correlation between the election and news supply and polarizing articles. And I think this intuitively makes sense that the interest in polarizing news is larger during election times, but editorial decisions will also lead to a larger supply of polarized news during the election. And we can also verify this by our first stage results, which I'm not going to show you today due to time restrictions, but this is available in the paper. And then we have the exclusion restriction, which states that instrument must be exogenous to consumers' page views and subscriptions. And this seems also plausible because election timing is independent of a user's individual clicks and subscription behavior. And also the interaction of news supply and the election is mostly driven by editorial choices and political dynamics and not necessarily by individual consumer click behavior. We can also confirm this by placebo tests, kind of similar to a parallel trends analysis that you would do in a definitive setting. So this just very quickly, we have more details, of course, in the paper. Here are the main results. So what we see here is the effect of polarizing news content on page views and subscription for the baseline OLS specification and the IV specification. And here you can see the effect of left polarizing titles and text. So we do the analysis separately because like journalists write articles, but then the managing editors may change the titles to be even more clickbaiting. So we thought this would be interesting. And what we find here is that left titles actually lead to more clicks. So what we may have expected, but left-leaning titles don't lead to more subscriptions. And we find a similar effect if you look at left-leaning texts. They lead to more engagement, but also they lead to less subscriptions. So it seems to be the case that publishers benefit from polarization in terms of ad revenue. So they're generating clicks, but they're not necessarily generating long-term subscriptions for the platform. And we see a similar pattern for right-leaning or right polarizing titles and texts. So if you look at the right titles, they also have positive effects on engagements, on users clicking on the platform, but no negative effect on the subscription behavior. And for the right-leaning texts, we actually don't find significant effects for those in this specification at the moment. So to sum up, the main effects is basically that polarizing content leads to more engagement on the platform, but not necessarily more subscription behavior. If you look at the heterogeneity of the effect across consumers, here we are interested in these prior political beliefs using voting shares of consumers' zip code and also consumers' baseline news consumption. For time reasons, I'm only going to show you the results of the baseline news consumption, which are essentially consistent with the results for the voting shares based on the consumers' zip codes. What we see here is that If you look at baseline left-leaning consumers, we can see that similar pattern to our main result. So if you have left-leaning texts, this leads to more engagement and less subscriptions. But interestingly, for left-leaning consumers, also right-leaning polarization actually leads to more engagement and, again, less subscriptions. So left-leaning consumers seem to be more willing to engage with left-leaning and right-leaning content, but they're overall not interested in subscribing to the platform, whereas right-leaning consumers don't read more if they are exposed to left-leaning content, and they subscribe less if they're exposed to left-leaning content, while in contrast, they subscribe more when they are exposed to right-leaning polarizing content. So there seems to be a clear asymmetry here, depending on your baseline left-leaning or right-leaning political beliefs. So this is what we have so far. Let me just quickly summarize our results and talk a little bit about next steps. So what we saw is that polarizing content overall significantly increases consumer short-term engagement on the platform. So people click more on the platform, which helps for ad revenues. But polarizing content significantly decreases consumer long-term commitment to the platform in terms of subscription behavior. And we see a clear heterogeneity across consumers. So right-leaning consumers are more likely to subscribe to politically aligned content, which is in line with confirmation bias. In contrast, left-leaning consumers engage with different perspectives from the left and from the right, but overall they hesitate to pay independent of whether content is polarizing to the left or to the right. So this is where we are at the moment. Of course, we need to do more work, especially also regarding the mechanism, but also with regard to the heterogeneity. For example, we are thinking it could be interesting to look at differences across education and things like that. So we will do more work there. And also we would like to dig a little bit deeper into what this means for news publishers in terms of ad revenue and long-term subscription revenue. So there's more to come, but I wanted to share this work in progress, and I look forward to any questions or comments that you may have on this project. Thanks again for having me, and I look forward to the discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Klaus, for your insights on the intersection of content polarization, audience engagement, and the subscription revenue that you have shared on the digital news platforms. In fact, your research highlights the dilemma that media company faces about how polarizing content can drive short-term engagement while potentially undermining the long-term subscriber loyalty. So, if I may ask to you the first question with the context of balancing engagement and subscription revenue. So, your study reveals that while polarizing content increases page views, it negatively impacts the subscription rates, presenting a clear revenue trade off. So, how can news platforms strategically balance their content mix to maximize both the ad driven engagement as well as sustainable subscription growth? Or could dynamic paywalls such as that adapt based on the user behavior offers a viable solution?
Yeah, that's a very good question, I think. I think, first of all, it depends on the goal of the publisher. So, of course, there are some publishers that don't really care about subscription revenue. They are more focused on ad revenues. But I think if you care about ad revenue and subscription revenue, like the most traditional newspapers or higher quality newspapers, I guess what you should do is a mix of content. So ideally, you would have like engaging headlines that are more focused towards short-term clicks and ad revenue, but you also want to think about in-depth, more balanced coverage, which kind of cultivates trust over time and also increases the willingness to subscribe to the content. So in that sense, I think dynamic paywalls could help. And this could be targeted to the individual users. So for example, if you are frequently consuming polarized content, maybe you see the paywall sooner, or you're shown less polarizing content over time. users with a mixed diet could be treated differently. And overall, I guess what we're also seeing in the publishing industry is that they try to focus more on relationship building, like they promote the brand of the journalists or the editors or the specific columns on the news outlets. And I think, this one-size-fits-all approach that many publishers used, I think is more and more going away, and we are also getting the tools to actually implement individual targeting of articles. And there are also good examples in the publishing industry that use, for example, what they call hyper-personalization, and they have been doing this very successful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Miller. So, Dr. Sikdar, if I may ask about a key insight from your paper, which is why does text predict art prices better than images? So, your research intriguingly finds that the text descriptions of the paintings are more effective at predicting final selling prices than the actual image themselves. So, this challenges the common assumption which we have that the visual appeal is a primary driver of art valuation. So could you please elaborate on why your model identified text as a stronger predictor? Additionally, do you think that this result is influenced by the way it sees platform functions such as search algorithm or how customer engages with the listings?
Yeah, terrific question, Shivam, and thanks for asking. As I said, this is so as a disclaimer, our model, the neural network architecture, is at this point only looking at the modalities independently. So we do not yet have a cross-modal interaction. So hopefully I'll be able to give you a better answer after the summer once we are done with revising this paper, where we have incorporated a CLIP model where we have the embeddings, which has that both text and images and their cross-modal interactions. So maybe we might see differences in the results. But having said that, I would say you're right. With Etsy, imagine you're a buyer, and here you're not buying a Picasso, so you're buying a painting where you're just looking at the visual image, which is it's a digital image uploaded. How do you gain confidence as a buyer to buy that product? So obviously, when you look at the text data, so I'm going to go back to what we identified from the topic densities. So some of the important topic densities were, or the topics that we got were using the topic modeling was, does the seller give a certificate of authenticity, right? Does the seller guarantee a certain shipping terms and conditions, like free shipping, or for that matter, free returns in case the product is damaged? And also, when you are a buyer who's just looking to deck up maybe a home or whatever, right? So you might want to also know what's the kind of material that's gone in, what's the kind of, is it like a canvas, is it metal, is it what, right? And so all of these descriptions are actually put in either the painting title or in the artist, like the description itself. So our hunch is that when you are searching to buy a product online, you would want to read more about it as opposed to just looking at something, because you never know whether that's, a print or a handmade or whatever, right? The digital image will not tell you everything. So that's why the text takes precedence over visual.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Sekdar, for your reply. So, if I may, Dr. Liu would like to ask you about the key findings from your research, which is how AI affects influencer marketers, matching and revenue. So, your paper, reveals a fascinating insight that while AI-based influencer marketers matching improves alignment, it does not always lead to a higher platform revenues. So niche influencers seems to benefit more from better matching than general influencers, increasing competition and driving prices down. So given this, how can platforms refine their matching systems to create a more balanced marketplace for both type of influencers, or could adjusting visibility setting be a viable solution according to you?
Yeah, thank you, Shiran, for this great question. It's a really thoughtful question. Right. So one of the possible solutions is like you can do some, as you said, visibility or just the filtering, right? So basically, you can filter out some niche influencers so that you can, regain or restore the previous competitive landscape. But there are just several caveats about this kind of strategy. So first of all, know that you have to do this very carefully because those niche influencers, you can also gain revenue from them, right? So how to set the bar? So what kind of influencers you may want to filter out? You may want to make them invisible. That can be a problem. So you have to do this in a very careful way, such that the trade-off is balanced. And another thing that I would like to mention is like this filtering is not trivial because it's not only based on the number. It's not only filter out some number of influencers, but also you have to filter based on the type of influencers. And especially when you say that the visibility thing, you are making those niche influencers invisible, which can in the long run create some problem because you're not really friendly to new influencers, right? So if you think about the growth of this kind of social media platform, they may want to encourage more new, smaller influencers, more niche influencers to come to the marketplace. So basically, if you we try to point out there's some short term at least a revenue loss based on this kind of technology or AI matching, but you have to think about the long run strategy, whether you do want to encourage more, smaller influencers, new influencers, niche influencers to come to the marketplace. And another third thing that I want to mention is like if your influencer somehow will know that you have some filter strategy, you have some visibility issues, they may also have some strategic behavior, right? So maybe the brands will go to a third-party matching system to find influencers, and influencers may also sign up in that places. So that can create some other more complicated, strategic behavior. So that can be a solution, but you have to use that at caution.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lu. So, Dr. Donati, I'd like to ask about an important implication of your study, which is making social media health campaign more effective. So, your research highlights a critical challenge, which is while a Facebook campaign for malaria prevention successfully engaged in urban population and those in well-built house, it struggled to reach people in more vulnerable housing condition, the group most at risk. So, what strategies can health organization adopt to ensure digital ads effectively reach these high-risk communities? And would combining of online campaigns with local community programs, if I put it in on the correct context, would enhance their impact?
Thanks for the question. So first of all, let me emphasize one thing that is important. So this digital intervention, as you probably are, we're suggesting, are not a substitute of local offline interventions, of course. I actually know that the World Bank is also a donor and a promoter of local interventions, right? So local field interventions. So one takeaway of our study is that even if you are online, right? So even if people are connected, right? So it's not about digital divide, it's actually about algorithmic divide. So even if you are connected, even if you are a social media platform, you are a user of social media platform, the way you use it, right? The way that the content you follow, your network can actually influence what you see, right? That is not new, right? We know that. But in our context, that means that you actually might be not exposed to important content that sometimes can help you get better health outcomes and eventually also better economic outcomes. I mean, the reason why we study malaria is also because we know that eventually better health outcomes are very important predictors of economic outcomes, right? So even if you are connected, some content might not reach you, right? So this is very important to understand, right? The fact that you are connected is not a necessary and sufficient condition for content to reach you, right? So what practitioners should do. So first of all, again, if your populations are not connected, then you need to go offline, right? So you need offline interventions on the field. But if they are online, don't give it for granted that they are gonna see your content. Okay, that's the important takeaway. And if they're online, how do you do that? Where you can try to understand who they are and try to feed that data into a model that platforms provide to you. Like commercial companies do that for clicks, right? So if I know that, or a mail list, right? If I have a mail list of subscribers, what I can do is just create a lookalike audience out of that email list. In our context, we don't have an email list, but we can know who are these people by serving them. So we can create a kind of a sort of mail list of people that are at risk, and we can try to feed that data into any digital advertising platform and trying to reach those people through a lookalike model tool, right? And we have seen that that worked for us in terms of recruitment, and so we think that can also work when you do these campaigns at scale. Of course, you're going to pay more, right? So I haven't mentioned all the price aspects of this. There's going to be a price that you have to pay for reaching those, but the cost effectiveness might actually be higher because those people who are at risk might actually experience larger shift in gains from these campaigns.
Thank you, Dr. Donati, for your answer. So, Dr. Miller, I would like to ask you about an important aspect of your research, which is AI personalization and its role in the political polarization. So, your study leverages the BERT model to classify polarization in the news articles, which sheds light on how AI personalization can reinforce user biases. So, given that many platforms rely on these algorithms, how does this affect a long-term user retention? And could interventions like exposure diversity constraint or counter polarization strategies help maintain engagement while also improving subscription rates?
Yeah, thanks for the very good question. So I think with AI-based tools and more personalization, the problem could actually become worse moving forward, to be honest. So if you're a reader that likes to read polarizing news and you get recommendations for more polarizing news, so based on our results, this should increase your engagement but reduce the likelihood of subscribing to the news platform. But it also depends, of course, who you are. So based on our results, like if you look at the left-leaning users, actually they would prefer a broader news diet, which could be in general a good strategy. So in that sense, I think these tools that you suggested, like that you have exposure diversity constraints or you do counter polarization strategies, like less political content, for example, or you could recommend articles from opposing views could actually help. But this is not something that we tested in our data. So it's kind of, I'm kind of abstracting like from our results, but that's something that would be interesting to test to really say whether that works. But I think it could work in the future.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miller. So, Dr. Sikder, I'd like to ask about an important insight from your research, which is rethinking how art prices are set. So, your study challenges the traditional pricing method for the novice artworks, showing that factors like size or labor hours don't always align with the final selling prices. So instead, elements such as durability, for an example, like canvas material and convenience, which is, if we can say an example, as a framed versus unframed, seems to play a bigger role. So how could these findings inform better pricing strategies in physical galleries or in art fairs?
Yeah, so great question again. So I think that our model is pretty much transportable even if you go take it over to the offline context, because the buyer behavior will not really change. As long as these are novice artists and the novice artists being purchased for consumption and with no hope for a resale or reinvestment. So you would really expect that all of these, things that are a customer might care when buying online, like, if a frame is already included, you're essentially taking a step off the customer's cost. So the customer doesn't have to pay for the frame or even search for a good frame, or for instance, if it's a durable material, let's say it's a canvas as opposed to, let's say, a metal that might warp, maybe canvas is something that's more preferable. So there's also demand side concept here. So I would say that almost all of the stuff, as long as we are in that domain of that the product is being consumed and not really being used for investment, I believe our model should be portable.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sikdar. So, Dr. Donati, I'd like to ask about a critical challenge highlighted in your research is that the fixing gaps in Facebook health ad targeting. So, your study suggests that the Facebook's ad system may have overlooked people in the weaker housing conditions, possibly because they use social media less frequently. How can ad platforms adjust their targeting strategies to ensure that the crucial health messages reaches these at-risk population? And could integrating AI with public health data improve outreach and effectiveness?
Yeah, great question again. Thanks. So first of all, I think there's a lot to learn from industry, right? So from commercial ads and commercial companies. So there's nothing evil about the algorithm, right? The algorithm is just trying to optimize for in our case for engagement, which means optimize for clicks, and eventually, hopefully, you'll also optimize for the revenues. So for the conversion, whatever the conversion is. So if you are a commercial company, that is great, right? So you want to minimize diversity and you want to maximize conversions, right? So if you know that a type of person clicks and purchase, then you want a lot of those, right? So you want really little heterogeneity there, right? And so the algorithm is great at trying to find those people who are more likely to engage, and so they are more similar to that type of person. In public health or generally for campaigns that try to promote social good outcomes is very different, right? We actually, for fairness purposes, sometimes you want to try to understand, let's try to reach as, wide and varied number and types of people, first of all, and try to understand who are those who are more likely to take up the program, right? So in our context, what we saw is that we need diversity, we need heterogeneity, first of all. And that is some kind of a trade-off that you face with the algorithms, right? So what you have to do is try to understand what are the key dimensions of heterogeneity, right? You can do through simple predictive analytics. I mean, you can call it AI, but you can just run an OLS regression and try to understand what are the factors that predict an outcome. And then what you can do is use the much more sophisticated machine learning tools and AI tools that platforms have, even if these are black box. That's true. So sometimes the machine, the lookalike models tools that Meta use, for example, is a very black box model, right? You don't know actually how they predict who are those similar to my audience, but you can try to test that, right? You can try to understand. What we did was just do surveys and ask people, right? So if you do it small scale and you test that, okay, the model, the tool allows you to recruit more people who are of a specific type, for example, those that are at risk, right? And you see that works, then it's actually a valuable tool for you to use it at scale, right? So again, it's a kind of a combination of data that is, I call it first-party data that you collect, right? So that's actually very important data in digital marketing, even for companies. And you use that first-party data that you collect as a researcher to feed the machine that Facebook has or Google have and try to exploit it as much as possible. And you use at that point third-party data from the platform. So it's a combination of first and third-party data and the machine that the platform uses, right?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Donati. So one last question from my side, and then after that, we'll take some few audience questions. So Dr. Liu, for you, I would like to ask about a crucial aspect of your research, which is AI matching and privacy issues. So your study highlights how influencer marketing enables precise audience targeting without directly relying on the user data, offering a privacy friendly approach. However, as an AI advance, the platforms may, you know, still leverage engagement data in the way that raises privacy concerns. So how can platform strikes a balance between effective targeting and compliance with the privacy regulations, and could techniques like differential privacy or federated learning provides a viable solution to this?
Yeah, thank you. This is a very interesting question. So first of all, we do claim that influencer marketing actually would be a way to get around the privacy concerns, because so you're not really using any user data directly, but you try to use influencer as an intermediary. A way to get access to your target customers. You just try to get the overlap between the influencers. The influencers' target audience and your target customers. So that's a way to somewhat preserve the privacy of your customers. That I believe that's a viable way. And of course, as you mentioned, as AI, the AI technology improves, of course, there are definitely other ways that you can try to do this kind of targeting. And of course, the privacy concern has become more and more, a severe problem. And so basically, of course, as you mentioned, there are different ways to tackle that. But one thing that I would like to mention is that you have to think more about whether there's any strategic implications when you try to have some more ways to protect your customers' privacy. It's not only increasing your targeting accuracy, but also at the same time, you may also change some strategic behavior of the participant. A recent paper that I read is about the difference between context-based targeting versus behavior-based targeting, and how this will actually incentivize different strategic behavior of users. So I believe this kind of there are kind of technologies that can help you do targeting without really hurting customers' privacy, but at the same time, I think there's some strategic behavior also behind it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. There are so many questions in the chat box. I would like just to take a couple of questions. So one question is for Dr. Sharmishta, is regarding that would the importance to the structural data increase or decrease in an auction setup, and where painters are already well known, which is a complication as the material and the artists are really different.
So our method is not for artists that are already well known, because their auctioning is really the pricing instrument. So the price setting is done by the buyer's willingness to pay and what they assume the artist's resale value would be. So obviously that's a completely different category in itself, where the artist reputation would drive buyers' willingness to pay, because that's a function of the resale value of the painting. So none of this is applicable for legendary artists. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here. Yeah, so that's the thing. Our model is specifically for artists where you cannot use auctioning as a pricing instrument, right? So that's where we bring in this, this whole methodology that, if you have a novice artist selling on a website, like an e-commerce marketplace, how do you price your product? So it's almost like a business that you're running. It's a micro entrepreneurship that you have. How do you price your product?
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. There's another question for Dr. Donati, that could the language of the ads have had a bearing too on the outcomes of the results?
So I didn't get the first part of the question.
Yeah, I think it's about the LLMs in the non-native languages. So, they might be talking about the multilingual context in the Indian firmaments.
I
Yeah,
get that.
yeah,
No, that's a very legitimate question. Sorry, I didn't have time to go into this.
yeah.
Actually, the ads were designed by local implementing partners. It's called Malaria No More. They were both using local languages and English, depending on the context. The ads that were mostly targeting more rural areas. So because there was some broad targeting, and I actually did it through Meta targeting tools. And so the ads targeting rural areas were actually in Hindi or other non-English languages. So they were aware of this issue. So they tried to to personalize the ads depending on the persona. But again, that's not enough to explain our results, right? I think that's what
Yeah,
we see.
thank you so much to the all professors. Actually, we are running over time, and thank you so much for the participants who have put the question in their chat box. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take any more questions, and I see many insightful questions in the chat box, and I truly appreciate the engagement in today's discussion. Today's session, using AI and ML to address challenges in digital platforms, insight from India and worldwide, explored the transformative role of AI in optimizing advertisement, refining market research, and shaping consumer decisions. Our panelists discussed AI driven targeting, dynamic pricing, and personalized experiences in digital advertising. Along with the impact on social media, influencer marketing, and platform revenues have been also been discussed. The conversation also highlighted AI's role in public health campaign by Dr. Donati, the challenges of micro targeting and ethical concerns, and digital media monetization by Dr. Klaus. So, as digital platform continues to evolve, AI influences on user experience, campaign effectiveness, and privacy conscious analytics remain a crucial area of focus. So, thank you so much to the all respected professors for your time and engagement. And may I now request Mr. Venkatesh to formally close this webinar?
Thanks, professors, and thanks, Shivam. It was a wonderful session. And Shivam, you have summarized it really well. And as usual, all the professors have been great talkers, and it increases the value of our center if we have such events. And these are pretty relevant from the time perspective. The topics were very relevant. In fact, thanks all the audience also for asking relevant questions. And without taking much time, I thank you all very much. Have a good day. And looking forward to all the professors to be part of future events and all the participants to be part of our events as well to get benefited. Thank you all.